So now that we've developed a basic takeoff and landing technique, it's time to add some speed on the runway. Now the aim of the approach is to get up to optimal speed and to accurately target the takeoff board and to arrive at the takeoff with an effective technique ready to set us up for a nice takeoff. So the approach is something that our professional long jumpers will practice all year round, because notice we're looking for that optimal speed and we're looking to accurately target the board and looking for technique into the takeoff. So the approach is not so much about achieving the highest speeds possible, but it's about running with a rhythm that sets us up for the takeoff. And all of that starts at the beginning with our acceleration phase. So here I am at the beginning of my runway. I'm standing on my mark here that indicates where I should start my run. And the aim of the acceleration phase is to gain speed as quickly as possible, but I need to do so in a consistent manner, which means that halfway down the runway, I'm in the same position every single time. Now to do that, we want to have a stable start position where technically it's going to be the same every single time. So we usually use a rollover start where I can take a 90-degree bend in the front knee, and from here I can rock back and I can create stability through my chunk, push from the driving knee through that 90 degrees that we'd normally see when we're sprinting, and we can drive down the track in a nice straight line so we don't get any of this deviation on the runway. Now we need to make sure it's as accurate as possible, because small changes at this end of the run are going to make a huge difference at that end. And that's going to mean we're either going to be on the takeoff board or way behind it or a foul. So we need to make sure that this part is exactly the same every single time. And we do that by creating our stable acceleration technique, but then by hitting the first 6 steps with 100% intensity. Now if I hit with 100% intensity, I know it's always going to be within a couple of percent on the runway. If I aim for a nice easy rhythm to start, maybe 70%, maybe sometimes it's 80%, maybe sometimes it's only 50%. And that means we're going to have this variation on the runway. By hitting a stable technique and hitting 100% intensity over the first 6 steps, it's the best way to ensure that we're going to have consistency at the start of our approach. Now because we only have maybe 30 or 40 meters to get up to speed, we often see some athletes have this rolling start where they're already jogging, they're already walking, they hit their mark and then they go. Now this can help with some of the more senior athletes to gain momentum in the acceleration, but what we should always be doing is hitting that mark with consistent speed and hitting consistent and effective acceleration mechanics with stability. Now with the rolling start, the issue is we can sometimes miss our mark by a few centimeters, which can affect our takeoff position, but it also means we can come into this mark with different varying speeds with each jump. And that means we're having to make adjustments down the runway later. So for our younger athletes, it's usually better to start from a standing position where we know the speed into our mark is 0 and we can create stability in our acceleration. So after our acceleration phase, we're going to find ourselves in the middle of the runway adopting our upright running mechanics. Now if you haven't checked out the sprints module yet, go and take a look at that for more accurate running mechanics. But what we're looking to do is to have everything always in front of the body, which sets us up for a nice tidy takeoff. So we need to be in a high hip position, we need to have an effective heel recovery so that we can run at the front, and we're looking to run with a rhythm ready to set that 1-2 rhythm in the takeoff. Now we said we were looking for optimum running speed. Now nobody can take off whilst running at 100% speed. So what we're looking to do is to run at around 95% of our maximum running speed, which allows us that freedom to relax and to convert some of that speed into the takeoff. Now the amount of velocity and the speed we can take on the runway is going to be determined by the capabilities and the technical abilities of our athletes. We're going to want to use shorter run-ups that's going to limit the speed on the runway and allow them to hit their technical takeoff. So as we come into our final 4 strides of the approach, we need to make sure that we're accurately targeting the takeoff board and that we're positioning ourselves ready for the takeoff. So we're going to start by accurately targeting the board by performing steering all the way back here 4 to 6 strides out. So we're looking to target the board all the way back here, which means we can make our final fine adjustments to the approach 4 or 6 strides out, and that means through the final 4 strides, we can run through the takeoff and take our speed into the takeoff. So we know that we want to take as much speed as possible through the takeoff, and that's why lots of people get taught that we need to increase our speed through the last 4 steps. But we need to make sure that we're taking our velocity into the takeoff, not just increasing our stride frequency. Often when we say to our athletes we need to increase our speed into the takeoff, they shorten their stride to increase their stride frequency, and that causes them to shorten their stride, lower their center of mass, and they'll find that their feet start to get behind them before the takeoff. And from here, it's impossible to hit that long lever and hit that big takeoff. So what we're looking for is to hold this nice high position after we've judged our distance to the board, and then we're going to run our hips through the takeoff, and we use the penultimate to lower our center of mass and get ready for that takeoff.